Texans win 24-20. This thing starts with the Texans muffing a punt inside the 5, leads to a quick, easy touchdown for the Jags. There's a lot of, if you take that play away, the games change a lot. There's a bunch of those this week, but this one maybe closer than it needed to be because of that unforced error by the Texans, but they end up pulling it out 24-20 to move to 3-1, and we're back to or continuing panic time in Jacksonville, 0-4, and the losing streak continues.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely put Houston in a hole to try and claw their way back out of, which they sort of labored to more than I expected them to in this game. But Jacksonville's defense made some plays, which it hadn't early in the season. They took advantage of that sort of gift early. Brian Thomas Jr. continues to look really good for them, and he is, slowly expanding his role. I think they're asking him to do more things, but it's like how good he looks at that other stuff, right? And that, a little bit like Xavier Worthy, there are things that you can't do with him from a defensive perspective. Like, can't give him a free release to run vertically into the secondary. Just literally can't do it because that's instant problem. Brian Thomas Jr.'s speed, athleticism, like you can't do certain things. That touchdown's a perfect example. You just can't let him like release to inside of your leverage and run across the end zone uncontested. He's too fast. You're not going to get that back. So
he looks good.
He does. He looks really good. It's funny because I was saying I think I said it last week, if you asked after 3 weeks what would the wide receiver rankings look like right now, it would be Chris Sims rankings. It would be Malik Neighbors number 1, Brian Thomas Jr. number 2, which seemed insane pre-draft, right? Marvin Harrison Jr., one of the best to everybody. Marvin Harrison Jr., one of the best wide receiver prospects in years, minimum. Okay, do you want Neighbors or Harrison Jr.? There was a conversation to be had there. There wasn't really a conversation between Brian Thomas Jr. and Marvin Harrison Jr., and yet after 3-4 weeks, you would say Brian Thomas has looked better. Now, Harrison, he's banged up. He scored a touchdown right at the start of last week. It's certainly way too early to be writing him off, but point is, Brian Thomas Jr. looks fantastic for the Jags.
I want to have a Trevor Lawrence conversation.
Uh-oh.
Do you want to do that? Do you want to give the Texans their due credit first before we get into the lowly Jags and where they're at right now?
Okay.
So Texans, they earned the win. It was a little ugly, I think, from their perspective. If you're a team that wants to be a Super Bowl contender, it's a little ugly. Like I said, that muffed punt, you take a touchdown off the board for the Jags, it's a 2-score game. It was a, 7-point spread in this game. I guess I'm just mad I missed my pick. I missed out on my pick because of a muffed punt.
That's what it is.
But C.J. Stroud, again, some big plays. Nico Collins, Uncoverable. Stroud missed a couple overthrows over the middle of the field. But you have plays like the Texans make the hidden plays to win the game beyond the muff punt. C.J. Stroud breaking free from a sack. I think it was a 3rd down, 2-minute warning in the first half. They pick up 23 yards. That ends up leading to a field goal before the half. Stroud just making a lot of big plays. Inconsistent run game again with Cam Akers. He's running fine, but it's not the same feel back as they had in week 1 where Joe Mixon was just keeping him on schedule the entire game. But the Texans have a lot of ways to win, including Stephon Diggs scrambling for a touchdown. They have a lot of different ways to win. They got whooped last week against the Vikings, but that's what the Vikings do to everyone. But the Texans, again, find a way to win in different ways every single week.
They do. Like the Texans, again, they dug themselves a hole, but they did claw their way out of it and looked pretty good doing it. Like even it wasn't necessarily conventional the way that they got back. Like they ran this kind of trick play thing, and then Stephon Diggs just nixed it and ran it in, like into the space, just read it on the fly. It was like, oh, look, it's a fairly large amount of space, seems to have opened up in the middle of the field. I'm just going to run the touchdown in, which I think was his first ever rushing touchdown for Diggs. For a guy that's...
It's a good scrambler. He's a great scrambler.
And he's always been used on sort of trick plays like that. It's actually kind of unusual that he hasn't managed to, had an end around or anything that's got him in the end zone. But anyway, yeah, first rushing touchdown, I think, for Diggs. But yeah, the Texans, they were able to ride a lot of negative in this game. They blew some plays, they gave up some, they made some mistakes, but still ended up coming out on the good side of it.
I see you admitting your wrongs on Twitter right now. So wrong about Brian Thomas Jr. He looks phenomenal so far.
He really does.
Sam Monson, NFL.
And this is with Lawrence missing him a lot. So do you want to go into your Trevor Lawrence diatribe?
Yeah.
Like there's a double move in there where Brian Thomas absolutely annihilates the corner. Lawrence misses him in the end zone. Like he had a pretty good receiving day statistically, Brian Thomas, and it should have been a lot better. I mean, you add that to his resume, and instead of 6 catches for 86 yards and a touchdown, it's 7. Just that one play is 7 plus another, whatever it was, 40, 50 yards, and a second touchdown. Like, he looks incredible, and you're not necessarily seeing it as obviously because Trevor Lawrence is still out here missing everything.
Yeah, late first quarter, I had that in my notes. I mean, just the missed opportunities from Trevor Lawrence. Again, he's on the list of quarterbacks I want to talk to JT about because we've watched Lawrence closely through the years. And look, I thought last year there was some bad luck in there. We highlighted that a ton where he made some good throws and passes weren't caught. This year, though, the accuracy, it's so inconsistent. There's the pass, the Brian Thomas Jr. pass, that should have been a long touchdown.
Yep. Early
Third quarter, they have that half roll again with the reset, and he's got Christian Kirk way behind the defense, misses him by a mile. So as much as I wanted to give the Texans proper credit and everything, but we talk about unforced errors. This is just the Jags missing. This is just Trevor Lawrence missing. And then the other part that I think is missing, they're up 3, and it's 3rd and long, and he just fires one pretty much into double coverage. Derek Stingley makes a really nice break on it. Could have been picked off. There's just something missing as far as Lawrence playing a complete game. Go back to week 1 with the Dolphins. The first half of the game looked outstanding. Beautiful red zone pass to Brian Thomas Jr. for a touchdown. Second half pretty much disappears, right? When they need him, comeback attempt, it's just not there. This game felt the same. Like the stat line through the first half looked fine, and then you look up again, it's like, oh, he's averaging 5 yards per attempt again because he's missing these deep shots. And I don't know if I have great reasons other than he looks like he's pressing a little bit. There's times where Lawrence is weird, like where he will rush some reads sometimes and just miss. Like when he gets in trouble, I think he speeds up too much, and I think you're just seeing way more of that where he feels rushed. But the excuse that we made, or the reason we mentioned for Bryce Young not needing to get benched, was that the pass protection was really good. If you told me before the game, hey, Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, the Texans pass rush is going to be left in check, this was probably the best pass protecting game the Jags have had in a long time. This wasn't sped up because of pressure. These are, using the term a lot, unforced errors, clean pocket misses by Trevor Lawrence. It is now to concerning levels, I think, for how the former number 1 overall pick is playing.
And they had a run game. Like, one of the things that has happened generally with this Jags offense is this offensive line that skews good in pass protection, bad as a run blocking unit, means that sometimes they just don't have a complementary ground game. Tank Bigsby had multiple big plays where he busted off a large run. Travis Etienne had a successful game. They had 150-something yards on the ground. They were averaging way above 5-6 yards a carry. The ground game was there for Trevor Lawrence to be able to lean on in this game, and he still didn't have a good performance.
Yeah, I don't know how to best describe it. Like, remember last year I kept saying it feels like the difficulty levels jacked up to 10 for Trevor Lawrence a lot of times. And if he makes 3 or 4 big-time throws, like a 15-yard out into this tiny window, but I feel like he chooses those situations, right? He doesn't take the easy one when he's supposed to, and he forces it into a tight coverage when he's not supposed to. And sometimes it works, and it's like, wow, look at that. Good job. There's just something missing in the decision-making right now. In addition to, in this game, he missed 2 touchdowns. He missed 2 touchdowns down the field. Could have had 2 more completions for about 100 yards, legitimately. And that ends up being the difference in the game for the Jags, to oversimplify it. And they're 0-4. As I mentioned the last few weeks, they're playing losing football. They're not making big plays at the right time. And as you said, run game was better, pass blocking was better, things that we had made as excuses in previous games. This one, to me, is on Lawrence. Missing throws. So we'll talk to JT about it on Wednesday.
And even if it's not all on him, when you become the $55 million quarterback, the focus goes on you more. Like, you assume more responsibility because of that contract, and Lawrence has headed in the opposite direction rather than, playing better because of it.
Anything else on this one?
There was a high leverage play that went against them. The Jags went for it on 4th and goal, up 20-17. They failed in a quarterback draw, which is not a terrible call, down by the goal line. And actually, when you look at the way that the Texans were defending and the Jags had it set up, the play was there to be made. But Fatukasi absolutely destroyed Brandon Scherf. This is another, highly paid guy, not necessarily living up to his contract. Fatukasi just destroys Scherf one-on-one inside, makes the play. Like, when you watch quarterback draws, the defensive tackle doesn't tend to make that play, right? Because the offense knows it's coming. They're generally blocking him to that outside anyway. The whole point is it's usually a passing situation, so he's rushing in the outside gap, not the inside one. The guard just has to take him where he wants to go. Instead, Fatukasi fights all the way back across Brandon Scherf's face, makes the tackle without Lawrence even getting to the second level. So really good play by Fatukasi, really bad play by Brandon Scherf. Again, big leverage play goes against the team that needed it.
They had a full yard. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of there if Fatukasi doesn't make the play.
Yeah.
But that's another thing that the Jags used to be good at. Lawrence has been really good on the goal line on QB sneaks. Remember the times that he would just...
Well, he's huge.
He is it, but he would use his reach a lot. He would just call his own number type of deal and just use his reach. But man, Jags missing 4th and 1s is another just common theme in this losing streak. Like the high leverage 4th and 1s, 4th and goal type plays that they lose, just all adding up for Jacksonville right now.
There's just they have a trend right now of all the players that they have really big investment in. Not all the players, a lot of the players that they have really big investment in are just not living up to those deals, right?
Josh Hines-Allen left with a concussion as well.
Yeah, and he's the one that made me check myself on that statement. I think he's absolutely living up to his billing, right? He's playing really well. But Brandon Scherf is on big money. This is a guy who's a former top 5 pick as a guard. If you're a top 5 pick as an offensive guard, you are expected to be one of the best offensive linemen in all of football. The Jags bring him over. He's on big money, and he just simply has not played as a top-tier player. That's an easy block for you to make as a guard, right? I understand you're going up against a good player against the run, but the way that play is set up, that's an easy block for you to make, and instead your failure cost them a 4th down opportunity and arguably the game from that point.